Welcome to the club, 'cause you're that kind of nerd.
Hello, and welcome to the club that is That Kind of Nerd. This is a show where we talk about nerdy things we're passionate about, and then normally we judge each other on what we bring to the table. However, this week, we're doing something a little bit different. Unfortunately, Brian cannot be here. He got a gift certificate to Build-A-Bear, and it is an unlimited budget, and you know, finding the right clothes for your bear is next to impossible, so he will be indisposed for a little bit of time.
Exercising futility, dressing your bear up appropriately.
Exactly, it's impossible. So it is Josh and I. Yay, Josh Burns!
What up?
And we are going to be doing a spoiler cast for a movie that came out a while ago, but is now finally able to own on DVD, Blu-ray, digital format. I don't know what you say anymore to that stuff, but you're now able to own it. Morbius. And let me tell you, I have been waiting to talk about this movie.
Have you?
Oh, man. I have feelings about this movie, and I need to get them onto a recorded format, or I will eventually explode one day.
All right.
So, how you doing, first of all? Life is good?
Life is wonderful.
Life
man.
is good.
I guess I've also been waiting to talk about this. It just, it so rarely comes up in conversation, Morbius.
Oh, really? You must not be on the internet right now.
I'm not.
Where it's Morbin Time is a great meme coming through.
Okay.
Are you not familiar with the Morbin Time thing?
No.
Okay. So let me give you a little context, good sir. Morbius obviously did not do well in box office performance and critical performance, and in most fans didn't even like Morbius, right? It did not do well. So the internet went, as the internet does, a little bit kooky when something like this happens. And someone basically said, this movie is so bad that at one point, I swear Jared Leto would look you right in the camera, and right before he turns into Morbius, goes, "It's Morbin Time." And I would believe it, that movie would totally do this. So much so that became the meme. It's Morbin Time.
Yeah, I'm seeing the meme now.
So it became such a thing.
Morbing around, time to morb.
It's everywhere, in every instance, every connotation you could think of. There's a meme with Morbin in it now. Here's the thing. Sony saw all this love for Morbius, right? Morbin Time and people talking about Morbius. That they were just...
They're thinking we're trending. We're trending.
We got it. Oh my God. Like, okay.
We need to capitalize on this trend.
Yeah, it's a late hit. Okay, it's a sleeper. Cool. What do we do? Now, we talked about a couple episodes ago, you are a studio exec. You're a suit who only looks at spreadsheets, right?
That's right.
You see your movie that underperformed is trending. What do you do, Josh?
Oh, full court press.
Right? You put it...
Full court press on the marketing. I want like... Morbin Time shakes, McMorbin. I want a sandwich.
You want the whole thing. And how do you start that? First step, right? First step is you put that sucker back in theaters, right? You put that thing back in theaters. And do you know what you get?
Not the first step.
Well, you forgot your Sony.
Yes.
So first step is you put it back in theaters. And do you know what it gets that weekend? That it comes back in theaters after its Morbin Time is all over the place?
What?
$80,000.
Total.
Well,
that's $80,000 they didn't have before. I guess.
Well, here's the thing, Josh. It was showing in 83 theaters.
Yeah. Well, it's almost $1,000 a theater. Like, I don't know what to say. You know what I mean?
It's not a good return, Josh.
Yeah, but there's 83 theaters that got an extra $1,000 that day. Like, that's okay.
It is a interesting twist. So anyway, Morbius not only is now available to own, but it was in theaters again. And again, it's because Sony just got trolled by a bunch of people.
It's not because Sony got trolled. It's because Sony didn't have anyone manning the social media station that day. You know what I mean? And that leads me to believe that it's like a complete it's a complete afterthought. Sony thinks to themselves, we don't really need to be in touch with what people are saying about us, do we? No. Right?
No.
Which is like when you look at Sony is not they're not a marginalized brand, right? They're not
right.
No,
yeah.
They're not really in most cases, right? Sony isn't the the middle of the pack or they're always sort of vying for the top spot in anything they do, right?
Yeah. They're not a shitty brand, right?
And yet they can't operate social media with the efficiency of, say, Wendy's, right? that's not like Wendy's, I think, is the level that most companies should aspire to.
Oh yes, absolutely.
In terms of social media. So I'm saying that because Wendy's isn't a brand that is constantly in competition for the top spot in anything.
No.
And yet, social media, genius. KFC, and maybe that's the thing, because KFC's their social media isn't brilliant, but it's better than Sony. How is KFC better than Sony at social media? How?
I don't know.
Okay.
But this is just one of those things, again, as we talked about, sometimes studio executives just read the spreadsheet, they just see a number, and they're like, yay!
I'm very glad you've introduced me to Morbin Time, because that's like and it's that look that my chin's against my chest, but my eyeballs are staring straight at you, and I'm saying it's Morbin Time.
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna morb all over you. I'm morbing around. I was just morbing around the other day.
I'm glad I got to introduce you to this meme. Again, this is what I'm saying. This movie could totally do that. And you would be like, yeah, that happened in the Morbius movie. Yeah, sure. Bernstein Bears effect happening with that one. I swear it could happen. All right, well, let's talk about this actual movie. And I want to start with the stats and then kind of get your impressions, and then we can kind of head first dive into this. 16% Rotten Tomatoes score for the tomato meter, 71 on the audience score, which I think is a little bit weighted with the Morbin Time memes and people kind of having fun at the expense of Sony. Your overall impressions of this movie, I kind of want to know what you felt leaving the theater or leaving, I guess, your couch, depending on when you watched this.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly didn't see it in the theater. 71, I think might be a little generous, but I wouldn't put it below the mid 60s. The movie was a vampire movie. I like vampires. Jared Leto, love Jared Leto. Matt Smith, love Matt Smith. Have Matt Smith's silhouette tattooed on my leg. So I'm just, I'm fine with the movie being a movie, and mid 60s, sure. Like, give it a 6.4.
Oh wow, sure. You're being extremely generous compared to what I did.
Really, what's the scale, right? I mean, what
I say on a scale from 1 to 5, right? On a scale from
1 to 5, that seems low, because it's not like,
go ahead.
If we're doing a Flickster score of up to 100%, right?
Sure.
Then 1 to 5 you're narrowing the field quite a lot.
I just use the Letterboxd rankings, right? Because I use Letterboxd now to categorize what I think about a movie, and they do 5 stars. So I
don't know. It's not enough. There's not enough nuance in there for me, because I think the jump from, say, mid 60s to an 80 is astronomical.
Right.
Right? And 64.
Oh, well, we don't have to hit it with a score, but like, what were your overall?
You just asked me what I would score at 64.
I'm sorry.
There.
We'd never settled on a scale, so it doesn't make sense if I ask you. It's like the points for our show. I don't know what they mean yet. We're still figuring it out. Let's just stick to general impressions. You said it was a vampire movie. You like that? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, it was fine.
It
was fine.
It was fine. It was okay. I left the theater because I saw it in the theater. Very, very upset and disappointed. And it wasn't. I didn't feel angry or I didn't feel super, super let down until I got to the third act of this movie and I got toward the end. And what it reminded me of is when you're in college and you're planning an all-nighter for a paper and it's 3 a.m. and you're on the last page and you're like, listen, it's not my best work here, but I'm going to get the job done, right? And I'm going to finish this paper. And the first couple pages, pretty darn good, but the end of it, you're turning into a rambling man. That makes no coherent sense. And the third act of this movie turned into a PlayStation cutscene where powers made no sense, and I don't know what the hell they were doing, and they just really phoned it in at the end. So I was very disappointed by this movie and let down about all this time I spent in going, I can defend this to Oh, fuck you. Now I got nothing left in me. You took it all from me. I'm sorry.
I think my initial thought about how it ended was, wow, that was abrupt. And it's not. It's like they ran out of road. You know what I mean? They were like, oh,
Yeah.
this is where we have to stop, right? So, abrupt. Yes, probably would have been served better as a show. Like I could have watched, 2 to 3 episodes of a show that were just kind of 2 to 3 episodes each of Morbius coming into his own and Lucian coming into his own, right? And sort of how that, because that escalated quickly, right?
Yes,
and then,
it did.
To your point, you started talking about, powers. Like all of a sudden he's like, wait, there's wind. I can fly. What?
Yep.
So look, there are points. There are points, CJ, where you're watching a movie and you're like, I'm not sure this is going to be good. And then there's a point where you're like, I know this is going to be a good movie. And that point for me is when Tyrese walks into any room. As soon as you see Tyrese Gibson, you're like, this is going to be a good movie.
But they cut him down so much.
Look,
Like you could have just had any person play a cop, and it would have been the exact same impact.
They put these two guys, and I'm just like,
why?
You could have spent money elsewhere.
Anywhere, fix that fight in the third act, right? Fix
Anywhere else,
fight.
you could have spent money, right? They're just, I wanted more. I wanted more Jared Harris. I wanted, but just like more of these characters coming into their own. Like, and I understand that, Brian and to some degree you and many others, are just sick of, origin story, but we don't have a Morbius origin story.
We don't.
And we still don't have a more, right? Because it just like, it went from 0 to 100, and I'm not sure how we got there.
Yeah, there's something in this movie that is like, listen, we're missing something. We don't know what it is. Can you fill in the blanks while you watch the movie? You'll connect something, right? Yeah, you'll find it. But they're just like putting the onus on me to figure out the movie, and I'm like, no, this is your job.
More cutscenes of Milo and Morbius, sort of growing up together. Things they did throughout why are they so close?
Right. No idea why.
How is this guy a gajillion?
Yes. How did he become a millionaire? We don't know.
He's a gajillion.
Yes.
He's not a million.
Okay. Yes.
He's a gozillion.
Right. Because he can fund all this research.
Right. No, I need a boat 13 miles off the shore. Right. He's like, all those guys, they're mercenaries. We can make that go away. If you have enough money to disappear
a boat full of
a multiple murder on a boat in international waters, I want to know how you got there.
Right.
No, I won a hand of poker against some Russians and they disagreed. And I'm just like, how is he playing poker with Russian gangsters?
Yeah, how do you go from a cripple in Italy to that? How do you get there?
How did he get bar credentials to get into and like not in a visiting room? He is credentialed. His lawyer credentials are good enough to get him into the guy's solitary confinement cell.
Yep.
There are problems here that I need. There are things that I just need explained. I need it fleshed out a bit more.
Right.
Like I don't feel like I had story. I feel like, okay, here's what we're gonna do. Right. And it made double its money. Like it doubled up.
Sure.
So people are always going to see movies like this if you put a Marvel tag on it. That's thing number one.
Right.
If you put Jared Leto in it, right, you're going to get, and there's a whole crop of people now that know who Matt Smith is.
Yes, I was excited for that, and I will say that Matt Smith knew what movie he was in and just had the time of his life.
Yeah, he did. He did.
The dancing scenes and everything, and just his facial expressions when he's doing the roar.
Christian was like, this this is the same thing he did in The Doctor. I'm like, I know. Like him just finding the right clothes, right?
Yep, exactly.
I'm like, yes, he's just being Matt Smith.
Yeah, he's just being. I guess people now know him from The Crown. People know him from Doctor Who, and then yes, there are people who discovered him in Morbius.
Dude, Matt Smith is jacked.
Yeah.
Like, when did that happen?
I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
You know what? Maybe it's in the movie, but they cut it out.
They did, yeah. And the other thing I was thinking is maybe you need to be jacked to be a Targaryen. Like, I don't think you can be a Targaryen and not be jacked.
Yes, because he's going to be in the Game of Thrones prequel series. Yeah. But yeah, Smith had a lot of fun. And you know what? I'll say the same thing about Jared Leto, which was I enjoyed his performance. And I'm not a fan of Jared Leto.
Really?
I'm not a fan of Jared Leto. But I like...
because you don't like movies?
Yes, actually. I despise him. I don't know if you know this. I would hate to have to sit down in like any kind of like recording session and talk about him. Like, ugh. No, I'm just not a fan of Leto. I think some of his movies are fine, but I also just, think him as the actor and some of the performances that he gives are just like, all right, that was movie, right? That was performance. But I liked him in this one. And you could tell that these two guys were like, trying to save this movie. And Smith at one point just goes, "Fuck it, man. Let's just have fun. Let's just do what we got to do." So yeah. I was okay with Jared Leto leading this movie, right? And I can't think of a time besides Requiem for a Dream where Jared Leto is leading the movie.
Buyers Club?
He wasn't leading the movie. That was McConaughey.
Okay, but he won an Oscar for the movie.
For Best Supporting Actor.
Yeah, I know, I understand. Look.
Where is Jared Leto the lead? Where does he lead? He is the draw. You're going to see the Leto movie.
I don't know that he is.
He's never been that I've seen.
No. So
this is a movie that...
Oh, Mr. Nobody. Yeah, you probably...
I did not see that movie. So for me, this was the first time seeing Leto having to carry the movie and be the main character and push this forward. And I liked his performance. I hated the story. It made no sense. Like you said, things were cut out. And obviously there were reshoots for this movie at the wazoo because of Spider-Man, and I feel like a lot of that got lost in there. But like, hey, the conflict between Jared Leto's character and Matt Smith's character, but between those two, I was interested. I was hooked. I was kind of watching their friendship devolve, and the classic bad guy of "we could be gods," and the other guy going, "No, we shouldn't be." Like, classic story, and they're doing it well. So like, I was there again all the way until the end, where it all just kind of makes no sense. It just stops. Everything just stops.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I'm still a little puzzled about your perspective on Jared Leto. But this is not. It's not unlike Marvel to do like a single character movie where you're like, this shouldn't be, and that's still my opinion on Ant-Man. But it was necessary. It's necessary to the story, right?
But this isn't Marvel. Well, like Marvel's fingerprints are nowhere on this movie.
I understand that, right? But it has a Marvel tag, and they've been very clear that all of these things can be folded in.
Not with this. They made this its own separate universe. That was that was the part about the ending, and the post trailer scenes pissed me off royally. Which is, you teased that you were going to have Michael Keaton's Vulture in this movie somewhere. He doesn't show up until the movie is over, and it's just like, oh, I popped into another dimension. I hope the food's good here.
Yeah.
And then, well, I guess we gotta let him go because we don't have him in any of our records. Okay, he's free to go, and somehow finds the exact same Vulture suit, which, by the way, because this isn't in the MCU, half that shit's made from the Jakari. Yeah. Well, where do you get this suit? And then they had this terrible, like, obviously Michael Keaton's just in a booth reading lines somewhere, and some other actor in this suit going, "I don't know how I'm here. I think it has to do with Spider-Man. We should team up," from a totally different scene that was filmed before, and this weird cut scene in between them. And it makes no sense. Like, yeah, we should hunt together. What? How? Again, there's that question of, could you explain how these two got in touch? Can you do something to tell me why these two are connected? Could you do that, please? So the ending also ticked me off. And that, again, I'm sitting there going, I'm deducting points. I hate this fucking end cutscene. It makes no goddamn sense. You clearly got scared at the end of Spider-Man No Way Home and rewrote the fucker. I hate this.
But because it has Marvel IP, it could be folded. There's no way you can say definitively, nope.
In an infinite timeline, everything is possible. Yes.
Right. So,
but in likelihood, you just removed Michael Keaton's Vulture from the MCU. That's what they did.
Maybe. Right? Maybe they did. Who knows?
Well, I mean, they did. They took him out. Like, they literally plucked him out of the MCU universe and put him in the Sony Marvel universe, which are two separate things. It's their own Doctor Strange little timeline.
No, I get it. But we just watched another movie with Patrick Stewart, and you know what I'm saying?
But that wasn't in the MCU timeline. It was in it was on a different dimension.
That's
what you're saying.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Right.
So,
but why do this? Why do this though? It didn't add anything to this. This movie.
Because it gives them an out, right? It's like it's preemptively, Flashpoint, right? We can do whatever we want if we fragment reality.
Right. But it didn't serve Morbius's plot at all, right? It didn't help the Morbius story in any way, shape, or form.
You're saying the cutscene itself.
Plucking Michael Keaton's Vulture character into Morbius's universe.
Well, we don't know what the intention was.
Well, that's clear.
Well, that's
Isn't
what I'm
that
saying.
a problem?
We don't know no, I don't think it is a problem, right? They had a thing, and then they were like, "Oh, we can't use that," right? So
yeah, right.
We can't use that anymore. But we've already done all this press that showed Michael Keaton's going to be right. So we have to do something. What can we do? What can we do that will cause the minimum amount of reverb? And that's what they did. It would have been.
And that right there,
far worse to take him out completely, and far worse still not to do the reshoots.
I would agree with you on that one, right? If you promise me Michael Keaton in a trailer, then never give me Michael Keaton. Yeah, I'm just gonna put you into the. So
now we're doing the thing again where you're banging the table over
Well, they were damned if they do, damned if they don't. If they didn't have to change their entire story, maybe, I don't know, think of something.
No, man, that's too expensive. Thinking of something is too. I'm serious.
Okay.
Right? I mean, handling it all in post-production with minimal reshoots and certainly no rewrites. That's kind of, because it's whoever's going to do the reshooting is just scribbling words on read this, right? Yeah. That's fine, and that's all you're talking about. Everything else, it just doesn't.
Yeah.
Look, it's fine as a vampire movie. It's even character-wise fine as a standalone Marvel story, character-wise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just the character of Morbius. Yes.
It had
at least had an arc.
Well, yeah. I mean, it had an arc that was kind of a fairly straight line that went very quickly from one end to the other. Right? It wasn't much of an arc, but okay. There's an arc of sorts. It just wasn't. I mean, it's just not what we're used to, and that's kind of fine. What I'm seeing from the Disney Marvel stuff now in general, I'm like, this is watered down as hell. It's not been great. So, I'm fine with it. I wish I had more of a story, and I think it would have been a much better series than it was a movie.
I can agree with that, and I think we're getting spoiled with the Disney Plus content coming out right now because it's pretty good. Moon Knight is really good. Loki was good. WandaVision's good. I'm enjoying Miss Marvel, right? And that's, again, here are some newer characters that most people don't know, right? And let's spend a long time with them to get to know them, and then we can kind of show off what really makes them work, right? And Morbius, the last time I saw Morbius in anything was in the 1990s Spider-Man animated series, And this is a very different take on that character, right? On that level of Morbius. So I just would have appreciated this story being told a little bit, better. I think, to your point, we got to introduce the character. It's not a great introduction, but we got him introduced, and we kind of gave an understanding as to what this character can do. But the thing that I like about individual character stories is I want the meat and potatoes. I want the story, and they really just went whoop and jumped right from A to C. Like, we skipped B entirely. And that's where I bump, and that's why I'm saying I don't care about the money that it took to spend. I'm not in charge of Sony's stock portfolio. I don't give a shit. Write the goddamn movie, right? Like, spend the time and push it back. Write the movie.
Maybe that is their formula. Like, maybe that is how they. I mean, because it basically is the same as Venom, right? It's the same,
yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and I was fine with Venom. It's fine.
Venom 2 was a dumpster fire.
I haven't seen it.
It's not very good.
Okay. Well,
you're right though.
All right.
But it's the same, because the same thing. They're skipping over the stuff that not like comic book nerds care about, that people care about when they see a movie. Which is
it because they're cut out? Is it because Sony isn't privy to what Marvel's going to do?
No, I think while I don't think they're hand in hand in the sense of, like, Marvel's like, and here are our plans for the next 5 years, and you can put your characters in wherever you want. Right. I'm pretty sure Feige's like, here's listen, Spider-Man is your concern, right? Here are the plans for Spider-Man, because this is what we're going to do. What are you doing with Captain Marvel? What are you doing with Miss Marvel? Fuck you, Sony. You don't need to know that. Here's your Spider-Man stuff. That's what you're allowed to play in. That's your sandbox. Here you go. And I think part of that is by design, so that way Marvel can just do its thing and not worry about Sony. And I think the other part of this design is, listen, keep fucking up and keep really making shitty movies. And eventually, at some point, no one's going to want to see your things. And then maybe you'll give our toys back? Will you give us our toys back if we keep messing with you?
No.
Sony's never going to.
No.
Right? You don't think Marvel's going to do part of it? There's not that corporate sabotage?
Oh, I mean, yeah, it could be, but it's going to have nothing to do with what the fans want. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Nothing at all.
No.
And look, I will say, for this movie and with Venom and Sony isn't, they're not at all making these into kids movies, which is kind of what Disney's doing. And that's, Shang-Chi felt like a kids movie. Miss Marvel is a kids show, and certainly
Moon
Multiverse of Madness.
Moon Knight sure in hell wasn't.
No, and neither was WandaVision or Loki, well, Hawkeye to a degree was. But a lot of these things feel very young adult, and Multiverse of Madness was that way for me as well. So I'm concerned, I guess, about that stuff. And in that respect, I like that they didn't water down the characters' like viciousness at all.
Yeah.
I mean, the movie was from
frightening
from that
scary.
aspect. Yeah, it was frightening. Yeah.
Seeing Matt Smith's character transform like that was creepy. Like, he was a scary looking dude. Like, I would not take my kids to see Morbius, and I'm not going to let them watch it. Right? It was terrifying. Very much like Venom, biting the heads off, talking about eating brains.
Yeah.
Even in the new one, there's a lot of really adult subject material and very dark themes expressed and explored in it. And yeah, Sony is taking a darker approach to this. My problem is this. At the end of the day, when I look at Sony and saying, what does Sony Motion Pictures have to offer me, the viewer of content, right? They've got, and we've talked about this before, they've got the Karate Kid, they've got Ghostbusters, they've got Spider-Man, they've got Jumanji, they've got Men in Black, and then that's really it. Like, big name IP, they don't have a lot. So when you started this conversation with, Sony's not a brand that, that is not necessarily low on the totem pole, that doesn't have anything that really holds them back. I think when it comes to their electronics or cameras, heck, even their mobile division that was up and running a few years ago, right? Not that bad of a deal. But when it comes to Sony Pictures, with the exception of Into the Spider-Verse and Ghostbusters, I don't have anything that I was like, yeah, super excited about. Even the second Jumanji was mid at best. So I think they want to hold on to this stuff. I think they really want to make sure that they can turn a profit with this. For me, this makes me less excited to see other Sony Marvel projects. I got burned with Venom, right? I was excited for it. I gave it a shot. I didn't like it, but I was like, okay, it's their first one out the gate for Spider-Man. I'll give you the pass. Venom 2 came out, and I did not like it. I thought that movie was awful. And then what do they follow it up with? The hit Morbius with Morbin Time, which again was extremely disappointing. That when Craven comes out and all their other plans, I have very little interest in seeing more of this Spider-Man universe Sony stuff because it's not connecting correctly, right? The Venom to Spider-Man universe, the weird disconnection that they just did with Vulture. Their attempts to even try to say, yeah, we've got some MCU blood in here is so mangled that I have no interest in seeing more of these immediately right out the gate. I'll torrent it. No, I shouldn't say that. I'll find other ways to watch it later on, but I am not rushing to a theater to see another Sony Marvel thing.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't really think that I'm rushing to the theater to see anything except Marvel originals at this point. It would have to be something pretty spectacular for me to go to the theater at all. And looking at what Sony has upcoming, other than the Brad Pitt Bullet Train movie,
yeah, nothing, right? They don't have anything really good right now. And the I think you're how do I trying to figure out how to say this without burning down Sony altogether. I don't need Sony to make a perfectly connected to MCU in and out flowing stream. I'm okay if they want to, just like we talked about with DC, right? I'm okay if they want to do a standalone story of a character and tell it really well, right? And not have it connect to all this other bigger stuff. I'll see that. Just like right now, I want to see a DC movie where it's just Superman and I don't have to mention Batman. I don't have to mention anything else. Same thing with Black Adam. I don't need it. I mean, it needs to be tied to Shazam, but I mean, I don't need it tied to anything else. Tell me those stories. You've got Black Cat. You've got Huntress. You've got, Kraven the Hunter. You've got so many other great, Spider-Man villains that I'll watch whatever you want to throw together, but don't feel like you have to tie this into the MCU at this point. Well, like I'm okay with just a standalone thing. So, I mean, if you give me more of that, maybe I'll be happier. But the fact that you're trying to tie this into a moving train that you don't know the path of, I think that's also what's screwing them up.
I hate to assume or speculate that they're kind of casual about their moves here, but like if I say, okay, I have $75 million to make a movie, and if I do certain things that could potentially tie into Marvel storyline later, and those things happen, and it does tie in, this isn't 75 million, this is 750 million. And if I completely miss the mark, I miss the dartboard altogether, I'm going to make double my money. Right. And I don't want to accuse Sony of being like, well, if it hits, right, it's 10x. And if it doesn't, we just make double.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, we'll still be able to pay for everything.
In by way of saying that that's acceptable. Right. Because I would assume that for Sony, that's acceptable. Maybe that's the answer, but here, like, to say that, well, I don't want them to do that. Well, look, too goddamn bad. Like, that's just, well, we don't get to say that.
So we're talking about the budgets now. This is fun. We haven't done that since the retro review. Since we're talking about the budget, right? It was estimated at a $75 million budget for the movie. Our rule of thumb is you double that for marketing. You take whatever the budget for the movie was, you add that to marketing. So you're at $150 million for marketing and for the production of the movie itself, right? Plus there were reshoots and stuff, so that budget's not exactly accurate. So whatever, right?
You're making a lot of assumptions, but
all right. So we'll stick to the 150. The gross box office for US and Canada was 73 million. Worldwide,
163 world.
was 163. But the budget, again, if you put marketing, is 150.
And again, I think you're being incredibly generous.
This movie had to be advertised 3 different ways. Remember, because it got pushed back 3 different times. So they advertised the shit out of this movie.
Where did they advertise it?
In movie theaters. There were trailers running. We'll be running for, remember, this was supposed to be
packaged as part of the movies that they're already running. It's packaged as they buy ad time. They don't buy ad time individually, right? It's peanut buttered out, and it's figured. Like
you're telling me with the delays in this movie being pushed back over 2 years, they didn't spend any extra money on
I'm telling you. No company just goes out and spends umpteens of millions of dollars on average. They already have contracts. They already have ad buys. They just replace things in and out. They just look at what they can move out and sub this in for, and that's what they do. They're not buying whole new blocks of ads for a specific thing. Like, they're just subbing things out. Plus, my guess is where they're affiliated network wise, those television ads are likely discounted, if not free. And in properties that they own, like Breaking Bad, wherever it's syndicated, they would get airtime there.
Yeah, here's my thought. And when I say those numbers and why I'm disappointed in those numbers, it's because of this. This movie got delayed because of the pandemic, right? It was first supposed to come out in March of 2021. Obviously not a good time for the world to be releasing a movie. No one was doing shit, right? So they were advertising it before March, right? Then it was supposed to be going to October. So then they were advertising it months before October. Then it got pushed again to January. And they were advertising it from October to January. Then it got pushed back again to January 28th. And then they pushed it back again to April. So they did a full year of marketing for this movie from March of 2019 all the way to April of 2022, right? A full year of marketing for this movie. And the gross worldwide is $163 million.
Okay,
that's not good, man.
No, but now you're drawing a different parallel altogether. All I'm saying is that it is not fair, or I think at all accurate, to assume that a marketing budget for a $75 million movie is another $75 million.
That's what we've always. No one's going to tell you that. But I mean, if you're we're talking about a solid marketing campaign for a year. Social media, TikTok, influencers. You don't think that budget over the year inflated at all? If you don't think it did,
$75 million?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Well, we'll never know. But regardless, it got advertised for a year, right? And still underperformed. I think we can call this an underperforming movie.
Well, yeah, we can call it underperforming.
Right.
What I'm saying is that probably it's acceptable.
Right. To Sony.
Right. For Sony.
Yes. They still made a profit, right? They were still able to put money into developing their next camera with that. Probably maybe the cover of the lens cap with the Morbius money. Probably covered the R&D for that. I also think, though, just as a movie, this did not hit the mark for me. This did not do well as a movie. Remove comic book movie, remove MCU, remove Sonyverse, remove just that. Just, hey, sit down and tell me a story about a character. This movie missed the mark. I don't feel like I enjoyed this as just a standalone, plain old movie, a film, as Brian would say, right? This does not get to film level. Remember when he was talking about he was calling something a film? We're like, please stop. This is a movie. This is not a film. This is nowhere near the Jared Leto art. I'm in a film, in a major motion picture. This was just a really crappy thrown together movie that made us. Even the Nobel Prize thing, which, by the way, she said like the Nobel Prize.
Yeah, she did.
No script supervisor, just going, hey, just heads up, Nobel. It's like a big fucking name. Like it's a huge award. Everyone in the world knows it, and so no, whatever. Even that scene, they just like glaze over it. He gets up and they don't even show the speech where he tells everybody, "Fuck you, I don't want your money, and I'm doing this for science, bitches." They don't even show that. They don't show it. That's a huge thing for a character, to show change, to show their persona, to show how they think about the world, so that way I have something to judge against them at the end of the movie to say, Did that character change? Did that character become different at the end of the story? And Morbius was all about, we'll tell you that they did. We're not going to show you. We're going to tell you that they changed.
Well, I think the moment for that was the second injection, right?
Right.
He was saving for himself. So like, I think it's, the other thing is, I don't know that Michael Morbius, the character, needed redemption. Like, he always seemed,
I don't think he did.
Yeah. So, saying, are they who they're supposed to be, or did they become what? Yeah. I don't really think we need a resolution on that with him in particular.
Because he's an anti-hero, right? Like, he's not really out there saving the world, right? Like, he'll help out, but like, at the end of the day, Michael Morbius is focused right now on Michael Morbius, right? He's there doing his thing. He's not there trying to save the world. He doesn't have that agenda. I don't necessarily think he has that drive, from what I know of the character, right? And even from this movie. But they kind of made it seem like he's supposed to. And again, that's why the end credit at the end was so annoying. They're like, we should hunt people down. Yeah, we should. Why? Why is this his outlook? I don't understand this. So, again, as a movie itself, I'm just sitting there going, I don't know who this guy was at the beginning. I really don't get who this guy is at the end. I don't even know how he got there. What do you want to... I loved Matt Smith dancing. That's really what this boils down to. Was I got done watching this movie and going, I don't know. I missed something. I like this. I don't get the full story. And you're setting it up for sequels galore with his love interest becoming a vampire at the end of this. Okay, great. I'm glad you put that character in there to get knocked out for most of the movie. And then, she's unconscious several times. And then she becomes a vampire at the end. Can't wait to see her in the next one. Will you actually do something about it? But then we're back to Venom 2 and me going, oh, okay, well, you're not going to do anything with the character. You're just going to phone this in. So I was disappointed by it. I think Morbin Time is the best thing in the world. I love the fact that people have trolled Sony to re-release this and spend more of Sony's money without making anything of consequence back. I think that's hilarious. But I would say, I am willing to say, you can skip this movie and you will be better for it. This is not going to impact your understanding of Spider-Man. This is going to have no impact on the MCU. Skip it entirely, and I think you'll be fine.
Unless you like vampires, then watch it. It's good vampire movie.
I'd love to figure that out. Just someone who doesn't follow comic books and only watches vampire movies.
Yeah.
Does that include
movies.
Twilight? Do you include Twilight?
They're vampire movies, yeah. Angsty ones, but they're vampire movies.
Bring out someone. Here's what you do. You go back to 1990s. I don't remember the exact year. I'll look it up. Grab someone who just watched Interview with a Vampire and then be like, hey, check this one out. It's also got a pretty boy who's a vampire. Let me know what you think. And if they leave it going, this was good vampire, I'll be astonished.
The first Twilight movie was good. It just went way off the rails fast. But hey, listen, and I'm going to put a cap on the, not only the marketing conversation, but our assumptions going forward. Mm-hmm. 30 to 50% is a fair assumption.
Right.
So, okay.
But I went with the high end at 50.
No, you went with 100%.
No, I did go with 100%. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
It's 30 to 50.
And you know what? I hear Brian yelling at me because I do think he says 50. So I think I did Brian wrong.
Okay. So if that's the case, 75 million, another 37 and a half, that's high, but I'd be okay with it. It's high, especially because it's Sony, but I'd be okay with it.
Yeah, I would
right?
say that's
stretched
right.
it out over a year.
Yeah.
Fine.
Okay.
But for the most part, with these big studios, I'd say 30 to 40%, probably on the money.
Yeah, that's probably right.
That's what we're going to use going forward. And I'll, for super ridiculous marketing, I'll give you guys some latitude and say 50.
Like the Batman. The Batman was a 50%.
I just wanted to make sure that Spider-Man 2 had a production cost of $200 million, and they spent $75 million on marketing. Spider-Man 2. So Sony.
Right.
$200 million.
It was a very different Sony back then.
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
$75 million in marketing.
I'll argue that's one of the best Spider-Man movies ever.
Right, but 37%.
Right. But that was also pre-social media, YouTube.
Now stuff is less expensive.
No, stuff is
not more expensive.
Oh,
nope.
No, things cost more.
Not TV advertising, not
That's your space. I can't operate in those numbers. That is 100% your space. So I will defer to your expertise. If you say things are cheaper, they are indeed cheaper. I will 100% concede to you on that one. You are smarter than me in that regard.
No, that's not smart. It's just I have to know.
Right, and I'm also an idiot. So you're completely. I know who I am, Josh.
Listen. I thank you, listeners, for indulging us the nerdy conversation of marketing. I will say, look, I like Jared Leto. I love Matt Smith. If you like vampire movies, check it out. It was, like, to CJ's point, it was not a good comic book movie. Really wasn't much of a great movie at all. It just didn't have a ton of stuff that you want to see in a movie, like a story.
No offense, that's kind of all I want to see in a movie.
But a vampire movie doesn't need a story. It needs vampires and vampire action. That's all a vampire movie needs.
Who had a better? Okay, I'm trying to think of, like, even with Lost Boys, where I would put this in just the rank of vampire film. You know what? That's what I'm going to turn over to the listener.
This is more like Dracula 2000. You know what I mean? Right, or yes, like John Carpenter's Vampire.
Dracula Untold, that. Right?
Yeah,
like those kind of movies. Okay,
it's a vampire.
You know
movie.
What? I enjoyed Dracula Untold more than I did Morbius, and because it was a better vampire movie, right? Just from
my god,
just from that part, Dracula Untold was a straight up vampire movie, right? I want to drink a lot of blood. There is pretty woman. I will try the solution, and now I am dead. Like, Morbius wasn't that at all. Get your helicopter. I'm going to release these bats. Anyway. All right. Well, I turn it to you, listener. I want to know if your team, it's Morbin Time, where this movie is all that you've got, and let's roll with it and Morbin till I die. Or if you are the camp of, just skip it and your life will be better for you. You'll be a happier person at the end of it. I'm curious to see what you have. Josh, it was a pleasure talking Morbius with you. I can't wait to do it again. We will be back next week. We'll find out if Brian is indeed let out of the Build-A-Bear at this point, if he has found the perfect outfit for his Build-A-Bear, or if Josh and I will be talking about something new and interesting. So stay tuned, and we will see you on the next episode.
Well, welcome to the club, cause you are that kind of nerd. It's Morbin Time.
Solid. Much like a frozen ice. Like penguins, Eskimos, and ice. Do you have that? Do you have a thing that's from a movie that, like, you're the only one who references that thing anymore? Like, I do a penguins, Eskimos, and ice all the time, and it's from Cool Runnings.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure I have several.
Yeah.
But to recall one at the moment, no.
Like Jenny and I will sometimes look at each other after we have don't let Gwen have this or don't let Lily have that, and we just look at each other and go, I don't want him to eat white bread. And it's a thing from Family Guy where Brian finds out, like, he has a son, and he's like, when you have a child, Lois, when you have a child, you get to decide what your child wants, and I don't want him to eat white bread. And I don't know why, but we are the only two people left on Earth that mention that thing.
That's hilarious.
It's weird because then we do it outside of the context of other people come in, like, what the hell was the don't eat white bread thing? You don't want them to eat white bread? We're like, oh no, we really don't care. We don't care at all. It's now I have to explain a Family Guy bit to you. Anyway. All right. Well, let's do this.